Amos Wilson. Our topic is the psychology of self-hatred among global African people. And we had a caller just a moment ago who raised the economic dimension, and certainly, I guess, the economic possibility. I constantly have had conversations about the potential that we have in terms of being an economic force. And there's no point in repeating the numbers of us who are in churches, community organizations, and how in just one weekend, we could raise obviously enough money to create our own banking system in one weekend. Professor Wilson, that last caller was reaching out.
That's in part the effect of the self-hatred, which leads to a squandering of economic resources. The inability of the black community to use this tremendous economic wealth for its own interests is indicative of the issue we're talking about here today. I hope we get around to talking about, when I talk about the effects of dealing with self-hatred, one of the effects, of course, is the misspending of money. And
how so, though? How does that work?
Because the money is misspent, again, to relieve pain, you see, to compensate for inferiorities. And because the individual has been reversed, which we'll have to explain at some later point, you will see a situation where almost inevitably the spending for getting over an inferiority complex involves spending the money with the person who gave it to you in the first place.
Wait a minute. There's something you have a thing about anger and resentment binding the oppressor to the oppressed.
Yes, and this is a part of the aspect of it, you see. You want to buy the approval, you want to buy, you mentioned even in the Garvey statement, you want to buy the products that restructure the image. And because you see, the essence of controlling people is to provoke a desire in them. And then, of course, have control of the satisfaction of that desire. You see, and that's at the foundation of the capitalist system and of the economic system, you see. And you can provoke that desire in them either through anger, through hatred, through direct tantalizing of the individual. See, the key to being in the ruling class is to create desire first and to have control over the resources for the satisfaction of the desire.
So provoke a desire, then service the need.
Then service the need.
Yeah.
But you also lay the conditions down for getting the need service. And that way you create the behavior in the process. And you create the personality in the process. So,
and those who can't get into that don't fit.
No, not at all. So the idea is, if you're cursed, often we say your behavior then will involve trying to get the person to remove the curse, which sends you back to the individual, asking their acceptance. And of course, often they will make a few demands on you, which you have to fulfill before you can gain that acceptance back again. If you feel as if, and see what happens when we were robbed, and we are robbed as people, we see who have it, but who has what has been robbed from us. But we also forced to buy back because we can't buy it from ourselves. We don't have it. You see, and so when we try to compensate for a loss of status by dressing well, we got to go to Bloomie's or somewhere, When we try to compensate for a loss of status by buying a house, we go to the white community, you see. Or by eating at, and we want to show those people that we're as good as they are, so forth. You see, all of this effort to compensate and prove something and to be accepted and all of this kind of or to escape is going to send you directly back to the people who created the situation in the first place.
Amazing.
Because we have been taught to worship everything that's non-constructive. That's one of the first things you do with people when you want to make them subject. You have them to, and I have this in the textbook, how did I phrase it? I'm trying to remember how I did phrase it. Well, these are not the exact words, but it's in there. Several times I say it in different ways. But black people are taught to glorify everything that is stupid and to run from everything that is serious.
Wow.
We don't want to deal with nothing that's serious and constructive. If it's constructive, we consider anything constructive as being, that's not no fun. See, anything that's constructive ain't fun. Fun is doing something that is absolutely non-constructive. And we have been trained that way. Trained by whom? By the usual suspects, the white supremacists. We wasn't born that way. But we gravitate toward any kind of thing. If it's silly, call the black people. All right, we're fixing to do something that's absolutely silly now. All right? So, hey, any black people around, let them know it's silly time. And so if it's totally silly, totally non-constructive, going to be a disaster, black people, we go to it just like bees to honey. We're trained that way. We're not naturally that way. But anything that sounds like it might be a little bit constructive, oh, that's boring. Oh, no. That's all right for somebody that wants to do that, but I don't want no part of that. That ain't no fun. But anything that's total nonsense and going to lead to a disaster, we want to be every part of it that we can possibly be. Now, why is that? We've been trained that way. That's why. All we have to do is break training. Say, wait a minute, where did I get this nonsense from? When did I start thinking that way? Hanging out with my homies? Well, why did my homies think that way? All right? It had an origin somewhere, and it's being passed down through the generations. And that's all that it is. Mm-hmm. All we have to do is just break training. That's it. Get on another wavelength, and that wavelength is, hey, if it's not constructive, I don't want to be nowhere around it. Suppose that's a decision that we can make. And we don't have to train ourselves to do it. Just start doing it. Just start right this minute. If it's not constructive, don't call me.
Think about what you want and ask yourself why you want it. Think about all the things that you tell yourself that you want to have and ask yourself if you want to have those things for no other reason than knowing that others have those things. Here's a question. What can you do to stop yourself from wanting what you do not need? Here's the answer. Do not seek or maintain contact with anyone who attempts to increase your needs unnecessarily. The need for more food, the need for intoxicating drinks or drug chemicals, the need for unnecessary or non-constructive sexual intercourse, the need to have more money to spend to acquire things that are not necessary and of non-constructive value, the need to become unnecessarily dependent on others. Here's an explanation of that. Do not keep company with or allow yourself to be influenced by any person who tries to get you to need something that you do not need. Avoid contact with people who try to get you to increase your need for anything. They may make you more dependent on another person, creature, or thing. Start now to avoid such contacts. Do not spend time, energy, or money trying to have things for purposes of showing off or for no other reason than to be able to say that you have those things. Do not try to go someplace like the place where you see someone else trying to go until you have made a careful study of the value of what that someone is trying to go to that place for. Do not try to do something that you see someone else trying to do until you have made a careful study of the value of what that someone is trying to do. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Happy Monday to everybody. I'm Joseph Ward. This is On the Shoulders of Giants, and we are continuing our review of Neely Fuller's The Compensatory Code is what I call it, but it is the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, a textbook/workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. And we are picking back up on page 79, where this video is a reading between I read page 79 to page 99, and this is what I'm covering in this video on part 2 of area 1 of economics of the 9 areas of human activity. Neely Fuller decided to start with area 1, which is economics, and go check out last week's video as I set the stage for what economics is and how we should Neely Fuller's definition of economics and the mindset, what instead of that we have about economics, but Neely Fuller has given us a mindset that he believes we should have surrounding economics so we can better use economics and better understand economics and how economics touches every aspect of human activity. All right. And so in this video, we're starting off, you see, I had the clip from Dr. Amos Wilson as well as Neely Fuller talking about the needs, how we're spending our money, how we use economics or our lack of use of economics, how we go about in our everyday lives, acquiring or not acquiring, using or not using resources to better our lives, to better our positions, and to escape the system of white supremacy or end the system of white supremacy. How are we using economics? How do we see economics? What is our whole definition of economics? That's what we're getting into. All right. So here's a note from what I read previously. Every minute of every day in all things, constantly try to think, speak, and act according to the difference between what is and what is not important. He's concentrating. The big thing in this is concentrating on spending our time, energy, and effort only on the things that are important. When you write with the basic intention of making the world the type of place it should have been when you came into it. Try to present what you write in such a manner as to attract attention only to what you have written rather than to attract attention to yourself as a personality. Try not to promote your many personal flaws through your writings. Try to make your writings as constructive as possible in spite of the presence of many flaws in your personal character. Keep notes, make recordings, write down information, and keep such information in a consolidated manner and use it as needed to help produce justice. If we're not doing what we need to do to better our position, then we're wasting our time to only getting more comfortable in the system of white supremacy and helping the system of white supremacy to continue. The thing that we say we hate the most. We are active participants in its continuance. When talking about ownership and or possession as it pertains to people, say the following. This is what Neely Fuller is telling us to say. Whoever possesses you possesses all that you possess. And that's deep. Whoever possesses you possesses all that you possess. You're not truly an owner if somebody still has ownership over you and dominion over you. That's what Neely Fuller, that's one of the main things Neely Fuller is getting at. And I've seen some of the comments from the first video and from some of the videos that Neely Fuller has because of his perspective. But think about it, though. People don't like the word domination, white supremacy. People don't like to hear that white people are in control, but it's the truth. Stop running from the truth. Semantics are not going to change the truth. Get out of your feelings. If you don't want to have this feeling, we should be working to end the system. The system won't end because you use different words or you try to change up the meanings or you try to say this and say that. It's the truth. White people have dominated the world, and in particular, white people have dominated black people, especially black people in America. We are under the system of white supremacy. When we want things, we have to go to them to get what we need for ourselves. That is domination. We have no power, no real power in this country. Why? Because we choose not to seize it. Get out of your feelings. Racism will not end in your position in life. Our position in life will not end because you don't like the words that are used, because it doesn't make you feel good. He's not telling you this to make you feel good. He's telling us this so we can get up off our asses and change our reality. Realities won't change because you in your feelings. You want to pout and stuff. Grow up. Grow up. Grow up. Get out of your feelings. We need to do better. If we want better, we have to do better. Be mentally prepared to suddenly have nothing in your possession besides your body, your mind, your spirit, and the will to survive what appears to be a calamity. Be prepared to compensate for promises made and not kept. During these disastrous circumstances, do your best to be calm and to use great spiritual persistence in the search of the logical and most constructive things to do. Do to the best of your ability, do those things and in a focused and methodical manner, and continue as long as necessary or until it is impossible to continue. All right. It also goes on to say, produce a plan of action that is designed to compensate for whatever losses you experience suddenly and without warning in any area of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, and counter war. Getting that, we have to be prepared for white people to white people. We have to be prepared for white domination to dominate. We have to be prepared for the people who have always shown us that they don't have our best interests to continue to not have our best interests, even in the face of acting like they have our best interest. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by the same people who's always giving you their ass to kiss. Don't be fooled by the same people who's always stepped on your people. Don't be fooled by that. Be prepared. We have to think ahead. Be prepared for everything, whatever we can do in any manner, in the best manner that fits us. Be prepared, but make it make sense under the compensatory code. Still has to be under the compensatory code. Make it make sense. Avoid using the expressions my child, my son, my daughter. Instead, practice using the expression my offspring. Now check this, because I ain't gonna lie, when I first read this, it was an eyebrow raise, but it was an eyebrow raise, an eyebrow. I can't even get my words out. An eyebrow raised. But I said, let me read. Let me read. Okay. As long as white supremacy racism exists, no non-white no non-white person can possess a child, a son or daughter. They can only produce offspring. Under white supremacy racism, all non-white people are directly or indirectly subject to the system of white supremacy and are the children of the white supremacy. Non-white people can produce offspring, but the offspring that they produce become at birth subject to the will of the white supremacists, just as the producers of those offspring are subject to the will. Makes sense. The white supremacists, in effect, function as the boss fathers or the boss mothers of all non-white males and females, including their offspring. This is true as long as white supremacy is the dominant socio-material force among the people of the known universe. As long as you are dominated by a group of people, you can never truly possess things. That's what I said that earlier. So we can produce offspring, but we don't produce children, which would denote possession, because we don't really possess them, because we don't really possess ourselves, because the system of white supremacy possesses us all. Now, if we don't like that, oh, there's something we can do about it. If you don't like what I just said, if you don't like what I just read, if you don't like Neely Fuller's words, there's something you can do about it. But the question is, are you going to get up off your butt and do it? Because this is to help us better understand what our scholars and our master teachers have given us, better understand and better use it in your everyday life. Are you really, really, really putting forth the effort to make all of your activities as constructive as possible? We know it's going to take time, but are you doing everything you can on a regular basis to make sure that everything you do is constructive as far as ending white supremacy and bringing justice? If not, stop complaining and stop working, and start working. Rather, stop complaining and start working. Avoid producing offspring until you can, with an absolute minimum amount of help from others, adequately. We have to be as self-sufficient as possible. Black people as a collective and individuals Have to be as self-sufficient as possible, depending only on ourselves, not the system of white supremacy, which we totally depend on. So we need to make sure that we can feed, clothe, and shelter the children or the offspring that we have. We need to teach our offspring to provide constructive care for themselves with little help from others, and also teach them what white supremacy racism is, how it works, and how to counteract its effects in all areas of activity. I saw a video yesterday where a guy, I forgot what I was watching, but a guy, I think I was watching a podcast from football players, and they was talking about racism and things. That's what caught my attention. And the guy was sad and surprised that he had to teach his 9-year-old son what racism is, because his 9-year-old son asked him what racism is. My immediate thought was, why don't your 9-year-old already know what racism is? Like, I'm not getting the mindsets that some of us are having, as if we don't talk about it, then it ain't gonna happen. But we know it keep happening. We know racism won't go away just because people don't want to talk about it. Racism gonna happen because white people continue to want to dominate and continue to have the will to dominate. Yes, you have to teach your 9-year-old about racism. You got to teach your 8-year-old, your 7-year-old, your 6-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 2-year-old, your 1-year-old. Even if you're 99, you have to learn it, because this is the system that we live under, and these are the people that dominate us. Once again, if you don't like me saying that they dominate us, hey, don't be dominated by them. Let's change this. Let's change this. Who cares how you feel? It's the truth. That's like saying, I don't like you saying that grass is green. I don't like grass can be, no, grass is green, and white people dominate black people. Do not under any circumstance engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play for purposes of gaining financial, monetary, and or material support for self or others, including offspring. Hey, well, a lot of us are going to have to get real skills. A lot of us are going to have to change our lives. A lot of us. Sex sells, and black sexuality, oh man, it makes everybody money. It makes everybody more money than it makes us, just like any other thing that comes from our culture. Black sexuality is something that's a commodity. It's a total commodity. Black sexuality, period, but especially black sexuality is a commodity. Now he goes on to say, as long as white supremacy exists, there are two and only two correct reasons for sexual intercourse or sexual play between people. They are: one, to help provide comfort for, incentive to, and promote constructive communication between the victims of racism and white supremacy, who repeatedly strive to speak and or act to resist or eliminate racism. And the second reason is to produce offspring. I'm gonna read that again. The number one reason is to help provide comfort for, incentive to, and promote constructive communication between the victims of racism, white supremacy, who repeatedly strive to speak and or act to resist or eliminate racism. And the second one is to produce offspring. He's saying these are the only two reasons to be having sex. If you're having sex for any other reasons, you are being non-constructive. We are a very non-constructive group of people. Our culture is non-constructive. We're going to get into that. We have created, or we've been given, and we've molded this culture to be destructive for us because it doesn't help us progress. It helps us fit into somebody else's something. Is it correct to ask, but do not expect any, it is correct to ask, but do not expect any white person who is a racist or any non-white person who is a victim of racism to do what needs to be done to help any offspring that you produce. Once again, get your mind back on, we have to be as self-sufficient as possible, as we can be under the system of white supremacy. A white person who is a racist will not do what needs to be done for your offspring. A white person who is a victim of racism cannot do what needs to be done for your offspring. As long as white supremacy racism exists, no person in the known universe will or can do what needs to be done for your offspring. Seek and ask for the help that is needed, but do not expect to get it. What is needed is justice. And without justice, you will not get what you need, because remember, they created this system of lack by design so they can continue to dominate. They created the system. You heard Dr. Wilson talking about, they created the system and the culture of us to have to need them. It makes sense. If I want to continue to oppress a group of people, I'm going to make them dependent upon me, not just dependent, but 100% dependent upon me. Why wouldn't I do that? Why would I empower the people that I want to dominate? That's stupid. No smart person, no smart group of people empowers the people that they want to dominate. You suppress them, depress them, oppress them, repress them. You make them need you. You make them worship you and hate you at the same time. But the need that they have and the worship that they have is greater than the hate that they have. Even though we believe that our hatred and our resentment and our feelings, our ill feelings and our negative feelings toward white people, we believe that they're stronger than our need and our admiration for white people. And that's another thing we don't like to admit, how much we admire the white supremacists. That's why we go out of our way to try to live the lifestyles that they live. We want to travel everywhere white people want to travel. It's a new thing in the black community. Travel, 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 travel. I have to see the world. I have to see this. I have to see that. But you're still coming back complaining about racism and have nothing. We still have nothing. We spend our money stupidly. We spend our money stupidly. I need to go to all black people want to go to Dubai. Every time we hear about white people going to these certain places or these other non-white people, anybody who not black, they're going to these places. We want to do it too. They go to Dubai, we want to go to Dubai. They go to Tulum, we want to go to Tulum. They go to Martinique, we want to go to Martinique. They go to Mars, we want to go to Mars. We want to do everything that they do because we see what they do as superior. And we understand subconsciously we know that what we have going on is not constructive. But consciously, we don't understand that. And we make the conscious effort to emulate our oppressor while going broke. Here's a question. Why should a non-white person try to end white supremacy if the white supremacists are providing food? And that's a great question. That's a great question. Oh, well, let me read it. Let me read it again. Why should a non-white person try to end white supremacy if the white supremacists are providing food, clothing, information, shelter, comfort, and entertainment for him or her? The answer is because a non-white person is a person, and because the system of white supremacy does not produce balance between persons. The people who practice white supremacy force non-white people to be used as things. A person is not a thing. A person is not a robot. A person is not a creature for social material capture and or abuse. A non-white person is not the same as property or a pet to be kept for feeding, sheltering, grooming, and for display as a trained status symbol for the white supremacist establishment. We already act like children, and we want to be displayed. We don't want to give up the comforts of the system because it gives us the feeling of being whatever, superior or important or like accomplished to something. We have to be important and we have to be accomplished. We have to be recognized. Think about how hard Black people work to be recognized within white systems or white environments. A Black person would go into a white person's environment and then seek recognition and seek validation from them. You went into their environment and seek it, and then when you don't get it, you mad. Like they're supposed to give it to you, like they owe you that. No, you are their pets. We're their pets. We need to get our mind right. We need to stop being delusional about what's really going on. All right. Here's a note. Ending white supremacy racism does not mean the end to end the ability of white people to do constructive things. Ending white supremacy means the process of helping all people to stop mistreating each other and helping all people to help each other produce justice. All right. Do your best to put as much distance as possible between yourself and any non-constructive surroundings. Try to reside in a place where there are few people and where all of your contacts with any people are of constructive value. Stops wasting our time, Do what you can to have available room or a place of compensatory emergency shelter for a person who is in need of temporary housing. Try to keep this room available at all times. Here's more explanation on that. A place to reside in an emergency is one of the most important needs that a person may have as he or she attempts to improve his or her circumstances and or to keep those circumstances from getting worse. A temporary place of shelter is sometimes all a person needs to prevent a major disaster. Now, remember, he's only talking about constructive people who may have hit hard times. He's not just talking about anybody who just need or who just want. Constructive people, because we're only spending time, we're only interacting with constructive people. So if there's a constructive person who has hit a loss, who has had loss or has temporary displacement or an emergency happening in their life, and they need that shelter, but you know that they're constructive because their actions and behavior patterns, then you can get out to that person. If they're not constructive, then we should not be interacting with them. Here's another question. In a geographical area that is greatly populated, where should non-white people who have very little seek to reside? The answer is, as long as white supremacy racism exists, the non-white people who have too few of their material needs and who have very little protection from harm from each other should seek to reside in the midst of white people and a great distance from other non-white people. Here's an explanation. Within the system of white supremacy, the non-white people who have the greatest need for material support and the greatest need for protection from harm should seek to reside directly among the white people who have much material support and much material protection from harm, according to the law of compensation. This is required. Within the system of white supremacy, white people are taught that they can go any place in the universe that they choose to go. They are taught to go with great confidence and often with great arrogance. Therefore, it is correct for non-white people to seek and act to guarantee that there is no such place that can be correctly defined as a white area or a black area, especially if we are dealing with white people who don't prop up and support the system of white supremacy directly, who don't consciously support white supremacy, right? Even if they unconsciously do it, then, you know, anybody who's not constructive and in the system of white supremacy, basically what I'm getting at. Any person who's not constructive and in the system of white supremacy, you shouldn't be around them anyway. Question: what are the basic and correct things to do if you are directly or indirectly forced to reside in a place that is regarded as unfit or unsatisfactory? The answer is 1, make the place as clean and as constructively orderly as you can. 2, improve the use of space or color, light, and of darkness. 3, place things in positions that will be of most constructive use. 4, make maximum constructive use of everything in your possession. 5, bring nothing into the place of residence that does not serve a need of constructive purpose. 6, plan a defense against intrusion, theft, damage, or destruction. And 7, try to produce or operate a constructive activity in the place that will help you be self-reliant as well as help you be of constructive service to others. Whatever space that you have, whether it's a space that you desire or a space that you don't desire, make that space as constructive as possible. Keep that space clean. Both my parents are neat freaks and they passed that on to me. I can't stand my space not being clean, not being the tidiest. I can't do that. I can't do it. And so that's what he's getting at. Our spaces have to be places that can create the optimal environment for us to be as constructive as possible. Constructive mindsets and constructive behaviors cannot be cultivated and created in horrible environments and decrepit environments and dirty environments and thrown away environments and environments where people don't care. Look at look at the black communities and the majority of the black neighborhoods that we can see. They are bad, torn down, they're dirty. But there are black neighborhoods where black people take care of their stuff. All black neighborhoods don't look the same. There are black people with more money take better care of their neighborhood than black people with lesser money. Black people who have more means and more resources, their communities look better. There's no trash on the ground. Like in my neighborhood, there ain't no trash on the ground out here. I'm not in the greatest neighborhood in my city, but ain't no trash on the ground out here because everybody out here care about their property. We have to have that mindset no matter where we are, even if you in the projects. There's nothing stopping people in the projects from having the projects look and be pristine. There's nothing stopping them. There's nothing making people in the projects throw trash on the ground. There's nothing stopping that. We can do better. We have to choose to do better. We have to see ourselves as better. When you see yourself as lower class, when you see yourself as destructive, when you see yourself as non-constructive, that's how you will behave. Study ways that you can start a business of gainful, constructive employment for yourself in which you can make use of the place where you reside without disturbing others. Make a list of all of the types of businesses that you think you can start at your place of residence and choose what you think you can do best. So, do business with a constructive purpose, including the purpose of learning how to do business in the most constructive manner. Do all that you can do to make your business to be directly or indirectly supportive of thought, speech, and or action against the system of white supremacy or racism. It is correct for you to use your place of residence for the following purposes: constructive sleep and rest, constructive study, and quiet operation of a constructive business. All right, so now he goes on to talk about dislocation and what it is and how it affects people, us as black people. Always be mentally prepared for your circumstances to suddenly and without warning be dominated by extreme terror, great disaster, or disabling loss. Be mentally prepared for the sudden loss of all of your material possessions and all interaction with people who you prefer to interact with. Always be prepared to lose what you have. Always be prepared for that. You're a black person in America under the system of white supremacy. That's why I say, if you build it, you must protect it. He's just saying it in a different way. Be prepared for the system of white supremacy to do their best to take away what you have. We have the historical evidence to prove that happens. White people who practice the system of white supremacy are all about domination, and they will squash anything that they may see as a threat or competition. They may let you in and they may not let you in. Be prepared for white supremacy to white supremacy. Be prepared for white people to white people. Be prepared to be forced to move from one place to another, which is called dislocation. Avoid dislocation, but expect to be dislocated. Speak and act to avoid and or prevent all direct or indirect efforts to force, coerce, bribe, and or otherwise entice any victim of racism or a non-white person to move from one place to another in order to directly or indirectly satisfy the requirements of the white supremacist racist, right? Dislocation without compensation is one of the major deceptive plans periodically used by racist men and racist women against non-white people. This plan is intended to disrupt whatever non-white people may be doing that helps them to constructively help themselves. Dislocation causes non-white people to lose something of established value for a promise of something of questionable value. Dislocation most often causes the non-white people to exchange something of greater constructive value and gain something of less constructive value. So there's a documentary on Amazon Prime, and it's about Middle Florida. But that documentary is about basically the history and the black history of Tallahassee, Florida, or this Big Bend area, the panhandle that I'm in here in Florida, which is It's like South Georgia. And we have a historian here, Miss Alphamese Barnes, who helped curate and create the Riley House. And the Riley House is one of our heroes here in Tallahassee, Mr. John G. Riley, who was an educator and a civil rights activist. And one of the things that Miss Alphamese Barnes was talking about in that documentary, and it's about Middle Florida. I'm looking for it now, but it's about Middle Florida. But one of the things that she was talking about was how land was constantly taken and how Black people were constantly displaced. And these are things that I learned watching. Well, these are the things that I learned as I studied more about the history of North Florida and this Big Bend area. And matter of fact, most of the cotton and the things that were produced from this area, or just from North Florida period, or Florida, were produced from this area. Slavery was big in this area around here, and it's called Invisible History, Middle Florida's Hidden Roots. That's the name of the documentary. And I think I'm going to do a review and a breakdown of that documentary as well. But it just popped in my mind as I read that about dislocation. It's just an example of Black people having their stuff taken from them by white people who want to take it, because it's another blow and it's another way to keep Black people from being able to truly progress. And then we're going to ask you all, then they're going to take our stuff and then ask us why we don't have anything. Well, but that's the system. Understand the system better. Understand the system so you won't keep being blindsided and you won't keep complaining. You'll be better prepared to fight it. Very little can be done to effectively oppose the powerful people when they decide to force the powerless people to dislocate. For that reason, it is important that a powerless person who is forced to dislocate by the powerful people to ask the powerful people for dislocation compensation. The powerful people are not likely to grant what is asked for, but it is important to ask. It is important to keep a record of what was lost and what was asked for, and for what would make up for what was lost. What was asked for should be of equal value to which was forcefully taken because of dislocation. Neely Fuller believes, under compensatory logic, that it is perfectly fine to ask white people for what you need, because they are the main reason we don't have what we have. So he believes that we should ask white people for what we need. Don't expect them to give us what we need, but ask them for what we need, because they're the reason why we need what we need. Do not brag about, celebrate, or try to produce the so-called Black culture, either as it was in the past or as it is now. Instead, produce or enact the compensatory counter-racist culture. Do this by thinking, speaking, and acting according to selections from a compensatory counter-racist thought, speech, and action that is specifically designed to end the system of white supremacy, racism, and to help produce justice. According to compensatory logic, culture is whatever is done and the effect of whatever is done. If what you do, your culture, as a victim of white supremacy does not result in the end of white supremacy or does not result in the establishment of justice, there's no reason to believe that your culture, there is reason to believe that your culture is worthless. And we have to be honest with ourselves. Our culture is destructive. It's not producing anything that we need. We need to start over. We need a paradigm shift as far as culture, because the culture that we brag about, the culture that we promote, is destructive culture. We actively promote the worst aspects of our culture because they're seen as fun and cool and hip. The things that other people can economically benefit off of us, they encourage us to promote that stuff. And we promote it. Look at our music. Our music is so destructive. I ain't gonna lie. Because I have to get to the point to where I'm throwing away stuff, and I'm actively doing that. But in the meantime, the music that we came up on, the music that we listen to, all our favorite artists, our favorite movies, like it's all destructive. That's why we are still here. It's all destructive. Well, I'm gonna say 100%, but for the most part, I will. For the most part, the things we consume as entertainment and culture is destructive. It's not constructive. It might make you feel good, and it may even the things that may make us feel good and may look like they're constructive are actually destructive because there's no actual growth towards justice or the end of white supremacy. If it doesn't help justice or end white supremacy, it ain't talking about nothing. That should be our main focus. The fun we have should be preparing us to end white supremacy or should help us end white supremacy. The entertainment that we have should, at the end of the day, still have us prepared to fight white supremacy, end white supremacy, get ourselves from up under the thumb of white supremacy. Here's an explanation that he has about what he's saying about not celebrating our destructive culture. Ancient Black culture proved to be inadequate in preventing the establishment of white supremacy. I'll read that again. Ancient Black culture proved to be inadequate in preventing the establishment of white supremacy. Modern Black culture has so far proven to be none other than pitiful, primitive, stupid, silly, tacky, trashy, and or terroristic reaction to white supremacy. Modern Black culture has so far proven to be none other than pitiful, primitive, stupid, silly, tacky, trashy, and or terroristic reaction to white supremacy racism. Here's another question. Which culture is the correct culture that should be protected? That should be practiced? Which culture is the correct culture that should be practiced? The answer is the culture that, 1, ends racism, white supremacy. 2, guarantees that no person, creature, or thing is mistreated or misused. 3, guarantees that persons who need help the most gets the most constructive help. 4, best helps to produce universal man and universal woman, people who are totally constructive. So that's self-explanatory. I don't even need to. That's self-explanatory, right? Here's another question. What is the correct thing to say when someone asks about preserving so-called Black culture or so-called white culture? Remember, y'all get out of y'all feelings when y'all reading this book now. This book don't have nothing to do with y'all feelings. Neely Fuller don't care about our feelings. He cares about us getting to where we need to go, our end goal, which is the non-existence of the system of white supremacy. The answer is, say any so-called culture that has not replaced white supremacy with justice is not worth preserving. So he's getting at the current culture that we have it's expendable because it doesn't help us to end the system of white supremacy. Here's a note. A culture is nothing other than the combination of whatever it is that people think, say, and do in all of their interactions with each other, with all other creatures, and with all things in all areas of activity. The most powerful, most sophisticated, and most accomplished culture in the known universe right now is white supremacy because they meet their goals. They have a desired goal and they meet their desired goals at the expense of other people in their culture. Matter of fact, they dictate, they manipulate and control other people's culture to make sure that the people are indirectly or directly contributing to the system of white supremacy. You can not like that. You can try to deny it, but it is the truth. You can't find a system anywhere in the world today that Black people control or any other people control that is more powerful than the system of white supremacy. Others are trying to challenge it. But think about how many other cultures, like the I talked about it in another video, the super PACs that these other countries have to create to even compete with America. They have to create super PACs to even compete with the system of white supremacy. All other non-white nations have to come together and be and align themselves to try to create super PACs to compete with the system of white supremacy. And they can only just compete. They can't dominate. What parts of so-called white culture should all of people of the known universe seek to copy? That's the question. The answer is Seek to know and to understand everything about everything that needs to be known and understood. During the existence of white supremacy racism, the most important thing for a non-white person to study is the system of white supremacy, what it is and how it works. This study should include every major detail of its establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement in every area of activity. During the existence of white supremacy racism, the best and correct way to describe so-called white culture is white supremacy racism. And you should understand it. You should understand white people. Nobody cares what the ideal should be. Take it as it is. They are showing us exactly who they are. They've already shown us exactly who they are. Believe them. Believe them. Their actions. Believe that. Believe it. Get out of the delusion. Get out of the fantasies and the falsehood. That will not help our lot in life. When talking about your ancestors, say my ancestors are whatever created me. Now, this for some of y'all might disagree with this, but that's fine. That's fine. It's all about critical thinking. As long as your disagreement comes in the form of a critical thought and critical assessment, that's fine. Because I believe I'm not asking anybody to agree with what Neely Fuller is saying. I'm asking you to critically assess it. That's what this is about. To critically assess the information that has been given to us so we can use what we can use from it. If you disagree, cool. Now, disagreeing with facts rather than theory or ideas, that's something else. The fact is, white supremacy dominates the world. That's a fact. White supremacy dominates us. That's a fact. So I think you kind of crazy if you disagreeing with the facts, but I fully support disagreeing with ideas and theories, especially from a constructive, logical place. When thinking about your ancestors, say my ancestors are whatever created me. If a person does not know everything about everything, a person does not know who or what his or her ancestors are. There is reason to believe that all things known and unknown are interrelated in such a manner that all things known and unknown have an effect on all things known and unknown. Do not brag or speak in a degrading manner about your ancestors. The explanation is, it is likely that you do not know or understand enough about your ancestors to brag about them or to speak in a describing manner about them. If you did know and understand enough about them, bragging about them or speaking to degrade them serves no constructive purpose. Because it all goes back to being constructive. You can honor your ancestors better by being constructive and being better and breaking down this system that negatively impacted your ancestors. Is what he's getting at. He's getting at stop wasting time and energy on things that does not help us. That's what he's getting at. My ancestors is any person, spirit, etc., that existed before or during your existence. Your ancestor of ancestors is whatever created your first ancestor. When asked to tell about what your ancestors invented, say my ancestors invented breathing, or my ancestors invented me, and I was invented to solve problems as they are presented to me. When learning or teaching about things that have happened in the past, seek to know and understand one, what mistakes were made, two, how the mistakes were made, three, how not to make the same mistakes again, and four, what to do now to compensate from the mistakes that were made, and five, the results of those mistakes. When learning or teaching about things that have happened in the past, seek to know and understand one, what mistakes were made, two, how the mistakes were made, three, how not to make the same mistakes again, four, what to do now to compensate for the mistakes, and five, the results of those mistakes. Study, learn, and be willing to teach others that the three most important things that non-white people should know and understand about history. Those things are what white supremacy racism is, how white supremacy works in all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, and counterwar. Three, the mistakes that non-white people have made both before and during the existence of white supremacy. We have to critically study what happened, what worked, and what didn't work, and the why behind both. If we don't study, we won't really learn. We won't really come up with real solutions. We'll only come up with ideas and theories that would keep us going in circles. Ain't y'all tired of running on the wheel? Y'all, the rat race, the wheel. Ain't you ready to get off the wheel? Get out of the circular logic and get into the linear logic. Get out of the thinking from problem to problem and go from problem to solution. Instead of merely trying to be remembered, now some of y'all, and this right here is for all of us. This is for me. It's for my favorite person, your favorite speaker, your favorite entertainer. What? It's for all of us Black people. Hey, because this right here, this is some real one right here. Instead of merely trying to be remembered in the so-called history books, try to do and say those things that will best help to replace the system of white supremacy, racism with the system of justice. Your existence is proof enough that you are now, always have been, and always will be in the so-called history book of existence and non-existence. I've been saying this for the longest. We have too many Black people in the conscious community who want to be remembered, who want to be famous, who want to be popular, who want to be the number one this and the number one that and the greatest this and the greatest that, but we get no constructive anything from them. Where are the constructive results of their work and their behavior? Are we just talking? And it's the talking that we're doing to be remembered. Egos. Put your egos to the side, trying to be remembered. Go out and do your part. This is not about trying to be remembered. This is not about trying to be remembered. This is about improving our position in life, improving our lot in life, ending the system of white supremacy. If being remembered by the general public after you are dead is important to you, say the following to yourself and say it often. I am not remembered for solving problems without making any. If I am not remembered for solving problems without making any, I am probably not worth being remembered. Yeah, he said it. Yeah, he said it. He said it. Yes, he did. And I'm going to repeat it. If I am not remembered for solving problems without making any, I am probably not worth being remembered. Yes, he said it. Forget your feelings. We are not worth being remembered if we just out here creating more problems just trying to be remembered. You are worthless and non-constructive. What rituals should be produced or preserved? That's the question. The answer is only those rituals which at the time that they are enacted help to guarantee that no person is mistreated and guarantee that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. No so-called special day should be set aside for these rituals. What needs doing should be done at the time it needs doing in order to produce the most constructive results. Here's another question. As a non-white person, what are you correctly qualified to celebrate or brag about while you are subject to the system of white supremacy, racism? His answer, straight to the point, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing, because you're only celebrating destructive behaviors. You're only celebrating the degradation. You're only celebrating losing, celebrating being a loser. I know somebody gonna have a problem with that, but it is what it is. During the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory logic, it is incorrect and illogical for any person to celebrate or brag about anything. The time and energy used to brag or celebrate should be used to produce justice and correctness. Wear the latest styles by wearing the garments that you have. If your garments are clean, simple in design, and neat in appearance, you are always appropriate and always in style. Do not use too much time and energy managing your hair. Keep your hair in a condition and or at a length that is easy to maintain and groove in a range in a manner that attracts a minimum amount of attention from others. He's basically trying to get us to be more constructive and simplify our lifestyles, to make our lifestyles more streamlined, to end the system of white supremacy and producing justice, rather than to consciously or unconsciously help to promote and uphold the system of white supremacy. The way we currently live helps to produce and promote white supremacy. It is incorrect to use or present hair, body ornaments, etc., in such a manner as to attract attention away from thought, speech, and or action that is of more constructive value. What I just said. Avoid doing anything to your hair that is likely to attract attention to or promote unnecessary reaction to the sight of your hair. Avoid using your hair as a source of entertainment for general public or for the purpose of displaying it as a theater for focused observation, consternation, curiosity, amusement, and disgust. Now, it's interesting. Scrolling social media yesterday, and I saw a post about a black woman who is on record now for having the largest afro in history. Now, according to compensatory logic, she just wasted her damn time. But that's how we need to think. It need to be real. It need to be raw. It need to be in your face. It needs to sting. It needs to be a reality check. You wasting your damn time sitting in there doing all these useless things. Like I be talking to some of these women, they've spent $200-300 on these weak ass wigs, and these dudes spending $50 on these crazy ass haircuts and stuff that we doing, wasting money and wasting time for the admiration of others. It's non-productive. And it's not helping us. Our culture is non-productive, but we don't want to talk about that because it hurts our feelings. Do not speak or act as if music is either so-called black music or white music. Speak and act as if any sound either helps you or others to think, speak, and act constructively or destructively. Practice listening to and enjoying only those sounds that help you think in a manner that produces a constructive result. In regards to people, it is best and correct to judge the value of sound that is produced or promoted by people by the effect that sound has on the ways that people think, speak, and act as a result of listening to that sound. I was having a conversation with a young lady Friday, and we were talking about different music. I was playing like some old school grooves and stuff, more of the positive old school grooves, and that are like some Barry White music and some other Stevie Wonder music and things. And some of the young girls was like, "Well, what is that? What is this and what is that?" And they, you know, they don't know. They haven't been exposed to the stuff, but the music that they have been exposed to them, that is music. Of course, every decade or every generation thinks like that, right? Unless you've been exposed. So, but she reminded me, and she was a representation of other people in our culture in present time who they don't like the overall outcome of the music, but they like the music. They know the words are destructive, but they like the music, and they like the beat, they like the flow, they like the melody, they like everything about the music, but they don't like the words. But they do like the words. They just telling us they don't like the words because they don't want to make it seem like they really, really, really indulge and really enjoy this destructive music. But you do. Once the melody gets you, you got it. Everybody who know that once the melody gets you, you are got. In regards to people, it is best and correct to judge the value of sound that is produced or promoted by people by the effect that sound has on the ways people think, speak, and act as a result of listening to that sound. Well, that means our sound and our music is straight trash. You need to throw it away for the most part. Throw it away and create some new stuff under the culture and the logic and the thoughts of a compensatory code that we create. A question is, what is the difference between music and noise? The answer: music is a combination of the presence of sound and the absence of sound. So is noise. Sound helps to produce and maintain justice and correctness, or it helps to produce and maintain injustice and incorrectness. Sound can be either music or noise. So far, the sounds that have been made by the people of the known universe have not resulted in the end of white supremacy racism, nor have these sounds resulted in the end of injustice and incorrectness. Therefore, no people have so far produced any sounds, any place in the known universe that have qualified for the title of music. We're just listening to sounds, according to Neely Fuller. All of the sounds made by the people have so far only qualified for the title of noise. Music by people is yet to be produced. It is correct for all people to try to produce music. It is also correct to keep listening to the sounds that help to keep them thinking constructively. If it's not constructive, don't do it. That's the basic premise of what he's getting at in this book. If it ain't constructive, don't do it. But he has to break down why it ain't constructive and break down why we indulge in non-constructive activities. So this last question is, when will it no longer be necessary to produce compensatory code of thought, speech, and action? And the answer is when all of our problems have been solved, i.e., when the system of white supremacy no longer exists. That's when it will be no longer necessary to produce compensatory codes of kind of thought. So toward the end of the chapter, he has certain things that he's hitting on. He says, seek to find or establish compensatory counter-racist logic, nuanced niches. These are situations or conditions that exist during the existence of white supremacy racism that, for whatever reason, known or unknown, allow a non-white person to gain something of constructive value in a constructive manner, apparently in spite of or because of a minor, calculated, non-calculated, or temporary so-called flaw in the system of white supremacy. It goes on to say, simplify and appreciate. Teach yourself to simplify and to appreciate all of the ways that you use your time and energy. Without spending money, teach yourself to appreciate all of the pleasant and constructive sights, sounds, and feelings that you are exposed to in many everyday ordinary situations. Include as major profit the many things that you see, hear, and feel that you often don't recognize as being worthy, experience worthy of being enjoyed for the moment, as well as being stored or revisited in memory over and over again. Recognize that worthy memories are great treasures that sometimes grow out of simple sights, sounds, and experiences that at the time of happening. You don't have to be extravagant to have the greatest memories. Avoid thinking that you must necessarily travel to distant places in order to acquire sights, sounds, feelings, and or experiences that may not be as valuable as situations that may be immediately present or very near. So here's this letting you know right now, the stuff we're doing ain't new. There's nothing we're doing is new. We think it's new because we're young and we haven't been taught about this stuff, but it ain't new. Try to produce greater strength in your body, legs, arms, hands, etc. Try to walk, move, climb, lift, and do more with your body in a constructive manner while also doing work that is of constructive value. Exercise your body by doing constructive labor. Avoid doing damage to your body by punching extra holes or carvings into or poisoning your skin with harmful chemicals. Try to reduce your dependence on manufactured means of motion, transportation, and or body support, i.e. get our goddamn asses up and damn work out and exercise and be healthier. Stop eating so damn much and sitting down and being unhealthy and goddamn get up and be healthier. Stop complaining about racism, white supremacy if you're going to participate in it. I remember seeing videos of this woman saying that the reason why Black people are obese is because of racism, white supremacy. And racism isn't the reason why Black people are obese. Black people are obese because we have destructive behavior. Is racism the root of it? Right. But racism make us do all. We can choose to do different. Basically what I'm getting at. We can choose to not have a victim mindset when it comes to racism. We can choose to deal with the system. We can choose to challenge the system. Well, what you can't do is make excuses and say, well, I am not taking care of my body. Because Black people are, because that basically what she's saying is, I choose to not take care of my body because racism exists. Racism has always existed, and the obesity rate in Black America is as high as it ever been. The obesity rate in Black America now is higher than the obesity rates when racism was at its height. Think about that. Racism is not the reason that Black people are unhealthy. Black people are unhealthy because we choose to be victims. We choose to remain victims, and we choose to have a victim mindset about racism. We understand we're being dominated, but damn, we ain't got to be victims about it because we can fight back. Try to operate some type of constructive business activity at the same place that you have your place of residence. Try to make that business activity constructively useful to those persons who are most in need of constructive help. Choose to do constructive work for yourself rather than asking others to provide work for you. Choose to ask others to provide constructive work for you rather than beg for things produced by the work of others. Try to compensate for whatever failures you have experienced. Practice being focused and persistent in learning what is best to do and say to replace the system of white supremacy racism with the system of justice. Never allow your desire for or your acceptance of fame, money, glory, and or admiration of others to become more important than the assignment of replacing white supremacy with justice. Expect that death can and will come to you and others at any time, and sometimes under circumstances not thought about seriously. Prepare your thinking so that you will not be surprised about the manner, place, and or time associated with death of any person, creature, or thing. Also expect death-making disease germs to exist as long as everything is not known and understood. And the last point he's hitting on is choose to have your constructive work be your so-called monument, memorial, and or funeral ceremony. Rather than have an expensive or burdensome funeral or burial ceremony, choose to have money and energy spent on some constructive product that you would have been trying to produce if you continue to exist. Even in death, make sure even in death that you are constructive. Make sure everything is set up for us, for you, and for us to live a more constructive life and to better understand and use economics and to participate in the system of economics as victors rather than victims, become victors rather than victims, because we can make a choice to do something different. I mean, let's just be real. At the end of the day, this is all about choice. Black people, we can make a choice to do something different. We can make a choice to be better. It's a choice for us to make. Hey, we make the choice because we make the choice to be destructive. We make the choice to be destructive. I understand about unconscious behaviors and all this stuff here, but at the end of the day, we're making the choice to be destructive. So we can make the choice to be better. That's what we can do. Stop complaining about racism if you're going to continue to exist in the system of racism. All right, so moving on to area 2, which is education. So we covered economics, so now we're going on to education. And let me see. So education goes from page 101 to 118. So next week we will be reading area 2, which is education. It's from pages 101 to 118. Don't take all day to read that. So make sure you're caught up and you're up to we're at the same pace. We're at the same place rather. Reading area 2 for education for next Monday's video. But for today, the reading was from pages 79 to pages 99. Now we're going to go from 101 to 118. Moving into education. Hey, once again, if your feelings were hurt by some of the truth, that's one thing. If you're uncomfortable by some of the ideas or theories, that's another thing. It's okay to have critical thinking, to think, break down, challenge, all type of thought, logic, speech, action, all those things. But just make it be constructive and come from a logical place. We should have critical thought about everything. We should break down everything. We should push back, ask questions. All that shit happen. Critical thought should happen. But we can't be looking facts in the face and be caught up in our feelings and mad at facts, especially when the fact is we can do something about it, but we choose not to. So don't be mad at the facts. Challenge ideas, but don't be mad at the facts. Let's get our stuff together and be better. The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, action, and or action for victims of racism and white supremacy. Link in the bio. I love you all. Make sure y'all catch the next video.